Happy New Year's, guys, and welcome to my first video. My name is Michael at Gravity Games, and today we're going to be talking about what I would say is the best stocks for a beginner in 2025. So, the video will start at this time right here, but I just want to talk about myself for a little bit. What I want to accomplish with this channel is I want to learn about the stock market, and I want to learn about the stock market and investing, and I want to educate myself and other people on it. At the same time, I want to learn how to edit and make videos because to post the video for you guys, I have to edit it. And in that, I will learn to make videos. I want to become better at giving presentations because I do deal with a lot of presentation anxiety, and I want to be more confident speaking to a crowd, which is why I'm practicing with a camera. Another thing, another thing that I want to do is I want to have an active community and channel while trying to balance everything else in my life. So I'm gonna make a Discord. It'll be coming soon. Not right now, but in the future I'll have a Discord for you guys. We can all chat about um, stocks and other things like that and the market. Just a little bit about me. I graduated high school in 2024. Currently, I'm an engineering student at A&M. I'm new to investing. I just turned 18 like 6 months ago, so I'm still new, trying to learn more about the stock market. And I also have a second channel where I do some vlogs. I play basketball with my friends. If you guys want to check that out, it's linked below. Um, so let's get into the actual video. This is what I would say is the best beginner stock for people starting in 2025, and that would be the S&P 500. All right, just as a disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for education purposes only, so take what I say and use that for you to decide if this is something that you want to invest in. This is just my thoughts and opinion. So what is the S&P 500? The S&P 500 stands for the Standard & Poor's 500. It's an index fund that is comprised of the top 500 companies, like the biggest 500 publicly traded companies in the United States. These companies span across 11 different sectors such as technology, healthcare, finance, and energy. Um, the S&P 500 represents 80% of the total U.S. stock market. It includes big names like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla. And it's also weighed by market cap, which means the bigger companies have like a greater size in the portfolio of the ETF. So the bigger companies are going to be held more. They're going to take up a higher percentage of the ETF than smaller companies. They'll take up a lot less than the bigger companies. So why is the S&P 500 a good stock for beginners? The first reason why is it diversifies your portfolio. So instead of choosing, because the S&P 500 isn't like technically a stock, it's 500 stocks put into this ETF. Instead of investing in a single stock like Nike and tracking just Nike's performance, it'll track 500 stocks with probably Nike included. It like diversifies your portfolio and it tracks multiple industries and multiple stocks. And overall, you won't be risking it all in like one single stock. Another reason why is historically it's performed very well. It has a long-term track record of solid growth. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned an average of about 7 to 10% annually, even after accounting for stuff like inflation. So, for example, if you invested $1,000 into the S&P 500 for 50 years, that investment would be worth around 2,500, which is a 25% increase, which is a good return. And the reason we're able to pull these numbers is because tracking the S&P 500's historic returns, it's been on average 7 to 10%, and we're taking in this situation we're taking 7%, which gets you that number of 2,500. Now, in that example, like I said, we used a low 7% yield, or on the lower side, which was the 7% yield. But if we went to the higher side, like the 10% annual return, if you invested $1,000 with a 10% annual return for 50 years, you'd have $117,390 at the end. Another reason why the S&P 500 is good for beginners is it has low fees. So, like I said, it's not a single stock, it's an ETF. full of many stocks, and that requires people to manage it and choose which stocks get put into this ETF, like the biggest stocks or the stocks that meet the requirement to be put into this ETF. So the S&P 500 consists of low fees. So for example, the average expense ratio for the S&P 500 would be around 0.03% compared to highly managed funds that can range from 0.5% to 2% or even higher. So another reason why the S&P 500 is good for beginners is it's stable and reliable. The S&P 500 includes well-established companies with solid fundamentals. These companies are often the market leaders in their sector. While it will experience fluctuations like any stock would in the stock market, its large, diversified nature tends to make it less volatile in the long run. So for an example, during the 2008 financial crisis, the S&P 500 had dropped a substantial amount, but it recovered in just a few years, like 2 to 3 years, just showing how resilient it is. Some stocks, they drop and never come back up, but the S&P 500 has constantly gone up and gone up over the years. Here's some evidence of the S&P 500's success. The S&P 500 actively beats fund managers. Studies have shown that the most active fund managers who try to beat the stock market by picking individual stocks and picking them underperform the S&P 500 over time. That just shows how good the S&P 500 is. And even as a beginner, you can just invest into this, and I would say it's a pretty safe investment rather than picking just individual stocks alone. So, as an example, in 2020, 60% of large capital fund managers underperformed the S&P 500, showing that passive investing in the index tends to outperform active stock picking in the long run. More evidence of the S&P 500 success is the compounding growth that comes with it. Uh, the S&P 500 also comes with dividends, which is money paid to you by holding the stock, but it's not a stock, it's an ETF, which also makes it a better long-term investment. So, for example, the total return of the S&P 500, including the dividends that it pays, has historically averaged around 10% per year. Without reinvesting dividends, it's going to be closer to around 7%. So, as I've said, the S&P 500 is just a makeup of these 500 companies. So how would we invest into the S&P 500? There are some ETFs that I'll name here. The first one is SPY, which is the longest known ETF for the S&P 500. But there are others like BOO, IBB, SPLG, SP, SPTM, but they're all pretty much the same. I wouldn't stress too much about picking which one's better because they do about the same thing. Personally, I use BOO just because it low fees like I've said previously. It's like I think it's 0.03%. But for low cost and low long term, I would definitely go with VOO or IBB. And then for high liquidity, I would go for SPY. So if you guys do want to start investing and you don't have a brokerage account yet, I would recommend Robinhood. It's probably the best brokerage for beginners. I have a link below if you want to use Robinhood. It'll give you some extra cash to pick for any stock if you want to choose individually, or you can also invest into the S&P 500 with the money that it gives you. All you have to do is click my Robinhood link below and you'll get started with that extra cash. So in conclusion, the S&P 500 has a diversification which exposes you to 500 companies across various industries and sectors. Historically, it gives long-term growth. It constantly goes up over time. It has low costs as an ETF with people managing it. There's not a lot of fees that come with it. It reduces risk because it spreads across the entire stock market. The US stock market gives you better chances of not losing your money. So if you want to start investing, consider putting your money into the S&P 500. But obviously, do your own research or talk to a financial advisor to find the best investment strategy for you. And here are my sources. Thank you guys for watching my first video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.